Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you doing this.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
You know, when I first met you, one of the things that struck me is, of course, your accent. Where exactly are you from?
I am from Rio, Brazil.
That's right. Now, our conversation we had in Dallas was around this idea of socialism and communism and how that in America we really don't recognize it, and yet someone like yourself is very familiar with that. If you don't mind, talk a little bit about that.
Well, for me, what struck me and got me off my couch and involved in this movement was, not just Barack Obama's election, but his campaign. I read his books, I did my research, and I couldn't believe the similarities between what has gone on in Latin America, which is the reason why, my parents left Brazil and moved to the United States in pursuit of a better life, which is exactly what we've had. So for me, the moment that really struck me was when Barack Obama had the exchange with Joe the plumber and talked about redistribution of wealth and how it was okay to redistribute the wealth around. And that's, in essence, what has taken place throughout Latin America. And, anybody who pays any attention to that part of the world knows that that's the direction that, Marxist leaders like Hugo Chavez and, Cristina Kirchner in Argentina and former President of Brazil, Lula, took those countries. And, it's pretty much a dictatorship. It's not communism per se because, I don't believe communism is fought the same way as it used to during the USSR days and, Poland and all of that. It's different. It's not a bloody revolution anymore. It's an ideological revolution. And that's what we're suffering in our country today.
What to you is the scariest thing that you see happening in America that would lead us down that road to socialism?
What scares me the most right now, besides the spending out of control,
sure.
That's a different issue, is what's happening with the Supreme Court. My biggest fear is that Barack Obama will get another 4 years in office, and he'll have an opportunity to appoint at least another judge to our Supreme Court. Once they take over the Supreme Court system, then it's irreversible. We will not be able to change things in the path this country is under. So to me, that's the most alarming thing going on right now.
Now, watch one of your speeches on YouTube, and you talked about the media. Talk about the media's role in all this.
Well, I don't really understand why the American media, the media overall throughout the world it has a tendency to be, prone to the left, biased towards the left. But I don't understand why, and the problem is we conservatives are at a disadvantage because the mainstream media is completely controlled by the left. So they're putting out false information, and the average person is too busy living their daily lives to actually do their own homework like I did during the election of Barack Obama to realize what's being hidden from them. So it's an issue, and I think if we're going to succeed going forward, we need to create our own voice, our own, media system. Like right now in the Iowa caucus, I know there's several Tea Party folks out there, streaming live via the internet and delivering news straight to our homes. So we need to become smart about that because the mainstream media is not going to deliver the news that we need to be hearing, which is the truth about what's out there. It's all going to be biased.
Another front that you're attacking on, of course, is trying to get good candidates to run for office. You work a lot with the Pennsylvania legislature. Yet in 2010, we elected a lot of good folks to office. We thought they were going to bring about a lot of good changes, and yet they've disappointed us. What is one to do in that situation?
It's a very, very difficult situation because I spent a lot of time in 2010, working on campaigns. We opened a Liberty headquarters through America Majority, and spent a lot of time and had a lot of faith in these guys, but it took less than a year for some of them to become part of the establishment, quote unquote. And I think, Jeff, the only solution is for people like you and I, to run for office. I have no intention of doing it, but there are so many folks that have gotten off their couches and have gotten involved, and sure, that's something that makes them tick. You know what I mean? I think we all need to find our niche in this fight, and surely there are people like us that want to run for office for the right reasons and want to be, in office just for a limited amount of time. I honestly believe in term limits. Otherwise, they all become career politicians. So
and rather corrupt too, it seems like.
Yeah.
When you look across the presidential field, which candidates bother you, and which candidates kind of make you think, okay, that person maybe would do a good job for us?
Look, the way I'm looking at it is anybody that we have running for the GOP nomination at this point will be better than Barack Obama. I have no doubt about that. You know what I mean? Barack Obama is the extreme of the extremes, and so I'll support whomever emerges as far as the nomination goes. But I obviously have my favorites. I think we need to be pragmatic about this. We need to pick the strongest candidate who has the biggest advantage over Barack Obama. And in my view, I believe that's Newt Gingrich. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not endorsing him, but I'm just saying I think he, on a debate, would defeat Barack Obama, hands down. It would be an easy task for him. And you need to pay attention to how is the average American going to get their information. It's going to be through the debates. They don't do the homework that people like myself do. So I think Newt Gingrich, has the best plan of action on how to turn the country around the quickest. He's got the experience, but like I said, anybody will do as far as I'm concerned. I'll support whomever emerges at this point, and I'm going to make a priority in 2011 to defeat Barack Obama.
Very
2012,
quickly,
sorry.
Sure. Very quickly before I let you go, are you surprised at how easily socialism has slipped into America?
I am surprised because I think Americans don't really have a parameter as far as comparing how good they have in this country, and what has taken place throughout the world. And, Americans, I always refer to them as living in a bubble. The United States of America is a bubble. And, most Americans don't travel outside the United States. I think only 11% of Americans have passports. So, even though we live in the age of the Internet and all that, like I said, people are working hard. They're raising their kids. On the weekends they want to go watch the Phillies and the Eagles play, and most people are not in tune with politics. So it's been very easy for the left of this country to infiltrate our society and, without us even realizing what's being done. It's been 60 years in the making.
Yeah, very quickly, what's the website, Anna?
It's www.thekitchentablepatriots.org.
Excellent. Thank you for your service. You're doing a great job in Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
Thanks Anna.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.